The room was glowing with soft golden lights, filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and the low hum of conversations. Nearly 80 guests had gathered, family, friends, neighbors, people I had grown up around, people who once knew me. I stood near the back of the hall, quiet, invisible, watching it all unfold like I didn't belong in my own life. This was supposed to be a celebration, a beautiful family gathering. But something felt wrong, deeply wrong. Then my mother, Nomsa Masko, slowly stood up, lifting her glass. The room fell silent. She smiled warmly, the kind of smile that makes people trust you instantly. Then she said the words that shattered everything. "We're praying for her recovery." A soft murmur spread across the room. I froze. My heart skipped. Recovery. My recovery. Before I could even process it, she continued, her voice trembling just enough to sound real. "It hasn't been easy, watching my daughter struggle like this. But we have faith she will overcome." And just like that, 80 pairs of eyes turned toward me. Not with love. Not with warmth. But with pity. Judgment. Whispered questions. That was the moment everything changed. That was the moment I realized my own mother had been telling the world a story about me that wasn't true. 4 years. I could feel it in the way people looked at me. The way Auntie Buzzy slowly shook her head like she had known all along. The way some guests avoided eye contact, while others stared too long. I wasn't Lorato anymore. I was the girl with problems. The one they whispered about. The one they felt sorry for. My chest tightened. I wanted to speak. I wanted to stand up and say, "That's not true. I'm not an addict." But the words refused to come out. My voice felt trapped inside me, buried under years of confusion and silent pain. Because this wasn't the first time. No. This was just the first time, she said it out loud in front of everyone. The truth is, the damage had already been done. Slowly. Quietly. Over time. It started with small things. Missed calls from relatives. Invitations that suddenly stopped coming. Friends who became distant for no clear reason. At first, I thought life was just happening. People get busy, right? But then the looks started. The whispers. The strange questions. Are you okay? Do you need help? We're here for you. I didn't understand. Help with what? That's when I realized something was off. Something deeper was happening behind my back. And now, standing in that room, surrounded by 80 guests, I finally understood. My mother had been painting a picture of me, a false addiction story, a life that wasn't mine. A story where I was broken. Lost. Needing recovery. And the worst part. People believed her. Why wouldn't they? She was calm. Convincing. A loving mother worried about her daughter. It was the perfect lie. A lie wrapped in concern. A lie that made her look like a hero, and me like a problem. My fingers trembled as I gripped the edge of the table beside me. I could hear the soft claps as she ended her speech. People nodded, some even wiping tears. Tears, for a story that wasn't real. My story had been stolen, rewritten, and performed like a show. And I was the only one who didn't know the script. In that moment, I felt something shift inside me. Not just pain. Not just anger. Something stronger. Something sharper. Awareness. Because if she could stand there, in front of 80 people, and lie so easily, then this had been going on for a long time. Years, maybe. Suddenly, everything started making sense. Every strange moment. Every distance. Every look. It all connected. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a calculated story. A toxic family drama built piece by piece until it became my identity in everyone else's eyes. I slowly lifted my head and looked around the room again. These weren't strangers. These were people who watched me grow up. People who should have known me. And yet, they believed the lie. That hurt more than anything. But deep inside, beneath the embarrassment and heartbreak, a quiet voice began to rise. This is not the end of your story. I took a deep breath. My hands steadied. For years, I had been living in confusion, trying to understand what was happening around me. But now, I finally saw it clearly. The betrayal. The manipulation. The false narrative. And with clarity came something powerful, a decision. I wasn't going to stay silent anymore. I wasn't going to let this lie define me. If there was one thing I knew for sure in that moment, it was this: the truth had a way of coming out. And when it did, everything would change. But I didn't know yet just how deep this lie went. I didn't know what I would uncover. And I definitely didn't know how far I would have to go to take my story back. So if you're watching this right now, and you've ever felt misunderstood, judged, or betrayed by the people closest to you, this story is for you. Because what happened next, no one saw coming. Make sure you subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Because this is just chapter 1. And the truth is only beginning to reveal itself. After that night, I didn't go home right away. I couldn't. The laughter, the whispers, the pity in their eyes, it all echoed in my head like a broken song I couldn't turn off. I walked slowly down the quiet street, the cold air brushing against my skin, but it did nothing to calm the storm inside me. One question kept repeating in my mind: how long has this been happening? Because what I saw that night wasn't new. It was practiced. Perfected. A story told so many times, it had become truth in everyone else's eyes. And suddenly, memories I once ignored began to replay, but this time, differently. I started to see the pattern. The quiet damage. The slow destruction of my name, my identity, my life. It didn't begin with a big lie. No, it started small. Almost harmless. I remember the first time something felt off. It was a family lunch, nothing special. Auntie Buzzy had pulled me aside, her voice soft, her eyes filled with what I thought was concern. My child, if you're going through something, you can talk to me. I was confused. Going through what? I asked. She hesitated, then forced a smile. Nothing, just take care of yourself, okay? At the time, I brushed it off. I thought maybe she misunderstood something. But now I know, that was the beginning. That was the first seed my mother planted. A quiet suggestion. A soft story. A false addiction narrative whispered behind my back. And like all rumors, it grew. Slowly. Silently. Spreading from one person to another, changing shape, becoming stronger with each retelling. Soon, things started changing around me. Friends stopped calling as often. Invitations became fewer. Conversations felt different. People spoke to me like I was fragile, like I might break at any moment. I remember one of my closest friends, Zingle, looking at me one day with hesitation in her eyes. "Lorato, is everything okay at home?" she asked. I laughed, confused. Of course. Why wouldn't it be? She paused, then shook her head. It's nothing, forget I asked. But I didn't forget. Because moments like that kept happening. Over and over again. Small questions. Strange looks. Awkward silences. It was like everyone knew something about me, something I didn't know about myself. That's when the doubt started creeping in. Quietly. Dangerously. I began to question myself. Did I say something wrong? Did I do something I don't remember? Why does everyone think I need help? That's the power of a well-told lie. It doesn't just change how others see you, it starts to change how you see yourself. And my mother. She played her role perfectly. Always calm. Always caring. Always worried. In front of me, she was normal. Loving, even. But behind me, she was building a completely different story. A story where I was struggling. A story where I needed recovery. A story where she was the strong mother holding everything together. It was a toxic family drama hidden behind smiles and polite conversations. I remember one evening, I walked into the living room while she was on the phone. She didn't see me. Her voice was soft, almost sad. It's been very hard, dealing with her like this. But I'm staying strong. I froze. My heart started racing. Who was she talking about? Then she said my name. And everything went silent inside me. I stood there, unable to move, listening as she described a life that wasn't mine. She spoke about late nights, bad decisions, struggles. None of it was true. Not a single word. But the way she said it, it sounded real. Convincing. Painful. Like a mother carrying a heavy burden. I stepped back quietly before she could see me. I didn't confront her. I didn't ask questions. I didn't even cry. I just accepted it. Not because I believed it, but because I didn't understand it. I told myself there must be some explanation. Maybe she was exaggerating. Maybe she was confused. Maybe I was overthinking. So I stayed silent. And that silence gave her story room to grow. Over time, the rumors became stronger. The looks became heavier. The distance became real. People didn't just suspect anymore, they believed it. I became the center of a story I never told. A viral life story in my own community, but not the kind anyone would want. A story of addiction. Of struggle. Of someone who needed saving. And the most painful part. No one asked me for the truth. Not once. They chose the easier version. The dramatic version. The story that made sense to them. Because it's easier to believe a shocking story than to question it. That's how reputation destruction works. Quiet. Steady. Powerful. It doesn't happen in one moment. It happens over time, until one day, you wake up and realize the world sees you as someone else. And by the time I stood in that room, in front of 80 guests, listening to my mother speak, the damage was already complete. That night wasn't the beginning. It was the reveal. The moment the hidden story became public. The moment the whispers became a declaration. And now, I couldn't ignore it anymore. Now, I couldn't stay silent. Because this wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was a deliberate lie. A false addiction accusation that had been carefully built over years. And if I didn't stop it, it would become permanent. I stopped walking and looked up at the dark sky. My chest rose slowly as I took a deep breath. For the first time, I wasn't confused. I wasn't doubting myself. I was seeing the truth clearly. And with that truth came a new feeling, anger. Not loud. Not explosive. But deep. Steady. Focused. The kind of anger that doesn't destroy you, it drives you. Because I knew one thing now. If she could spend years creating a lie, then I would take whatever time it takes to uncover the truth. And when I do, everything will change. Because this is not just a story of betrayal. This is a story of truth revealed. And I was just getting started. The night after the gathering, I didn't sleep. Not even for a second. Every word my mother said, every look from those 80 guests, every whisper, it kept replaying in my mind like a loop I couldn't escape. But this time, something was different. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I wasn't confused anymore. I was awake. Fully awake. And once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. By morning, I had made a decision. I was done being the silent victim in a story I didn't write. If this was a toxic family drama, then I was going to face it head-on. No more guessing. No more hoping it would stop on its own. I needed answers. Real answers. I found my mother in the kitchen, just like any normal day. She was making tea, calm, relaxed, like nothing had happened the night before. Like she hadn't just stood in front of 80 people and destroyed my name with a false addiction accusation. I stood there for a moment, watching her. It felt strange, how someone could look so peaceful while causing so much damage. "Mom," I said, my voice steady but firm. She turned slowly, surprised to see me awake so early. "Lorato, you're up. Do you want some tea?" "Tea?" That's what she asked me. After everything. I stepped closer, my heart beating fast but controlled. "Why did you tell people I'm an addict?" The question hung in the air, heavy and sharp. For a brief second, I saw it in her eyes, a flicker. Not guilt. Not shame. Calculation. Then, just as quickly, it disappeared. She sighed softly, placing the cup down like she was the one dealing with something difficult. "Lorato," she said gently, "you're not well. You don't even realize it." My chest tightened. "What are you talking about?" "I'm fine. I've always been fine." She shook her head slowly, stepping closer to me like she was comforting a child. "Denial is part of it. That's why we're trying to help you." "We? Who is we?" I felt anger rise in my chest, but I held it in. "There is nothing to deny," I said, louder now. "You're lying about me. To everyone." Her expression changed slightly. Not into anger, but disappointment. Controlled. Strategic. "I'm your mother," she said calmly. "Why would I lie about something like this?" And just like that, she flipped it. Suddenly, I was the unreasonable one. The unstable one. The one who didn't understand her own situation. That's when I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just a lie. This was a system. A well-built story where every reaction I had would be used against me. If I got angry, I looked unstable. If I defended myself, I looked in denial. If I stayed quiet, I looked guilty. It was a trap. A perfect, carefully designed trap. Before I could respond, a voice came from the doorway. "Lorato, your mother is right." I turned quickly. Auntie Buzzy stood there, arms folded, her face filled with that same fake concern I had seen so many times before. "We've all been worried about you," she continued. "You may not see it, but we do." My heart dropped. Of course. She wasn't alone. The story had spread too far. Too deep. This wasn't just my mother anymore. This was everyone who believed her. Everyone who helped carry the lie forward. I looked between them, my mind racing. 2 against 1. But not just here. Everywhere. In the community. In the family. In every conversation I wasn't part of. This was bigger than I thought. So that's it. I said quietly. You've all decided who I am without even asking me. My mother stepped forward, her voice soft but firm. We're trying to save you. Save me. That word hit differently. Because now I understood. This wasn't about helping me. This was about controlling the narrative. About making sure their version of me stayed alive, no matter what I said. I felt something shift inside me again. Not confusion. Not pain. Clarity. Sharp, undeniable clarity. I straightened my posture, my voice calmer now. Stronger. No, I said. You're not saving me. You're destroying me. Silence filled the room. For the first time, they didn't interrupt me. You've created a story about me that isn't true. A false addiction story. And you've told it so many times, everyone believes it. But I'm done pretending I don't see it. My mother's expression hardened slightly, but she said nothing. I took a step back, my eyes locked on hers. If you really believe what you're saying, then prove it. That caught her off guard. Just for a second. What do you mean? She asked. I mean proof, I said. Medical records. Reports. Anything. If I'm struggling like you say, there should be evidence. The room went quiet again. Auntie Buzzy shifted uncomfortably. My mother didn't respond immediately. And in that silence, I found something powerful. A crack in the story. Because lies are strong, but truth has one advantage. It can be proven. That's what I thought, I said softly. I turned and walked away, my heart pounding but my mind clear. That was the moment everything changed. Not because they admitted the truth, but because I stopped accepting their version of it. For the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was thinking. Strategizing. If this was a game, then I needed evidence. Real evidence. Because I knew something now that I didn't fully understand before. This wasn't just emotional. This wasn't just gossip. This was reputation destruction. And the only way to fight that was with undeniable truth. As I stepped outside, the morning sun hit my face, warm but sharp. I took a deep breath and made a silent promise to myself. I will not let this lie define me. I will not let this false story become my reality. And no matter how long it takes, I will find the truth. Because once I do, I won't just defend myself. I will expose everything. And when that moment comes, no one will be able to ignore it. I didn't rush. That was the first thing I told myself. This wasn't a moment for emotions to take over. This was a moment for strategy. For years, a false addiction story had been built around my name, carefully, quietly, and convincingly. If I wanted to break it, I couldn't just argue. I couldn't just shout the truth. I needed proof. Real proof. The kind that silences whispers and replaces lies with facts. That's when one name came to my mind, Dr. Arjun Patel. The family doctor. The one person who would have real records. Real history. The truth that no one could twist. My heart beat faster as I stood outside the clinic. This was it. The moment I would either confirm everything I already knew, or discover something I wasn't ready for. Because a small part of me, deep inside, still feared the unknown. What if there was something I didn't remember? What if somehow, they were right? I pushed that thought away immediately. No. I knew my life. I knew my choices. I knew my truth. And today, I was going to prove it. I walked inside. The smell of antiseptic filled the air, clean and sharp. The receptionist looked up and smiled politely. Good morning. How can we help you? I need to see Dr. Patel, I said, my voice steady. It's important. A few minutes later, I was sitting across from him. He adjusted his glasses, studying me carefully. Lorato, it's been a while, he said kindly. What brings you here today? I took a deep breath. No turning back now. I need my full medical records, I said. Everything. He paused, slightly surprised. Of course, he said slowly. But may I ask why? I looked him straight in the eyes. Because there's a story being told about me. And I need the truth. The room fell quiet. Something in my tone must have told him this wasn't a simple request. He nodded gently and turned to his computer. Minutes felt like hours as he searched, clicked, reviewed. My fingers tightened in my lap. This was it. This was where the truth lived. Finally, he turned back to me, his expression calm but serious. Lorato, he said, I've gone through your records carefully. My heart pounded. And? I asked. He leaned forward slightly. There is no history of substance abuse. No reports. No treatments. No signs of addiction. Silence. Heavy, powerful silence. I closed my eyes for a second, letting his words sink in. Even though I already knew the truth, hearing it confirmed, it felt like a weight lifting off my chest. But at the same time, something else rose inside me. Anger. Not wild anger. Focused anger. Because this wasn't just a misunderstanding anymore. This was a confirmed lie. A false addiction accusation with zero evidence. Are you sure? I asked, just to be certain. He nodded firmly. Absolutely. Your medical history is clean. Then he paused, studying me again. Has someone been saying otherwise? I let out a slow breath. Yes, I said quietly. 4 years. He leaned back, concern crossing his face. That's serious, Lorato. Very serious. I nodded. I know. And in that moment, everything became clear. This wasn't just family drama. This wasn't just gossip. This was something deeper. Something intentional. A toxic family narrative designed to control how people saw me. To shape my identity without my permission. I stood up slowly, my mind already moving ahead. Can I get copies of everything? I asked. Full records. Signed. Of course, he said. I'll prepare them for you. As I waited, I stared out the window, my reflection faint in the glass. 4 years. I had been fighting something I couldn't see clearly. But now, I had it in my hands. Truth. Simple. Clear. Undeniable. And truth like that. It doesn't whisper. It speaks loud. When he handed me the documents, I held them carefully, like they were more than just paper. Because they were. They were my voice. My defense. My weapon. Thank you, I said sincerely. He nodded. Whatever this is. I hope it brings you peace. I gave a small, knowing smile. It will bring more than that. As I walked out of the clinic, the sunlight hit my face again, but this time it felt different. Warmer. Stronger. Because I wasn't walking in confusion anymore. I was walking in certainty. I now had everything I needed to expose the truth. But as I stepped forward, another thought crossed my mind. Why? Why would my own mother create such a damaging story? Why would she spend years destroying my reputation? There had to be a reason. And suddenly, I remembered something. Small moments. Strange behaviors. Conversations that didn't make sense at the time. The way she always needed sympathy. The way she positioned herself as the strong one, the suffering one, the hero. And then it hit me. This wasn't just about me. This was about her. The story she created about me made her look powerful. Resilient. A mother fighting for her daughter. She wasn't just telling a lie. She was building an image. And I was the price she paid for it. I stopped walking, my grip tightening on the papers. That realization cut deeper than anything else. Because it meant this was never about helping me. It was about control. About attention. About narrative. But she made one mistake. She thought I would never question it. She thought I would stay silent forever. She thought the story would remain hers. But now, everything was different. I looked down at the documents again, then slowly lifted my head, my eyes focused, determined. The next step was clear. I wasn't just going to defend myself. I was going to expose everything. Publicly. Clearly. Powerfully. Just like she did. Because if she could stand in front of 80 guests and tell a lie, then I would stand in front of them and reveal the truth. And when that moment comes, there will be no more whispers. No more doubts. No more lies. Only truth. And this time, everyone will hear it. The room was full again. Not by accident. This time, it was planned. The same kind of gathering. The same kind of people. Family, friends, neighbors, the same faces that once looked at me with pity, judgment, and quiet whispers. But tonight felt different. The air was heavier. Anticipation moved through the room like a silent storm. Because this time, I wasn't standing at the back. I stood at the center. Calm. Steady. Ready. My mother, Nomsa Masko, sat among the guests, dressed beautifully, composed as always. To everyone else, she was still the strong, caring woman. The mother who had been praying for her daughter's recovery. The hero of a story she created. But tonight, that story was about to end. The room slowly quieted as Saibanjal Nkosi, the host, stepped forward. Thank you all for coming, she said with a warm smile. Tonight is about family, truth, and unity. Truth. That word echoed in my mind. I stepped forward before fear could find me. Before doubt could return. Before anyone else could control the moment. I want to say something, I said. My voice was calm, but it carried across the room. Heads turned. Conversations stopped. Silence settled in. I could feel their eyes on me again, but this time, it was different. This time, I didn't shrink. I stood taller. Many of you know me, I began. Or at least, you think you do. A slight shift moved through the crowd. Confusion. Curiosity. I continued, steady and clear. For years, there has been a story told about me. A story of addiction. A story of struggle. A story that made me look like someone who needed saving. I paused, letting the words sink in. I saw it in their faces, they recognized the story. They had believed it. But tonight, I said, my voice stronger now. I'm here to tell you the truth. A quiet tension filled the room. I reached into my bag slowly and pulled out the documents. The same papers I had held onto like my lifeline. My proof. My truth. These are my official medical records, I said, holding them up. Signed. Verified. Real. You could hear a pin drop. There is no addiction. No history. No treatment. No truth to the story that has been told about me. A ripple moved through the crowd. Whispers began, but not like before. This time, they were different. This time, they carried doubt about the lie. I turned my head slowly and looked directly at my mother. For the first time, her calm expression cracked. Just slightly. But it was enough. 4 years, I continued, I lived in confusion. I watched people distance themselves from me. I felt my name, my identity, my life being slowly destroyed by a false addiction accusation I didn't even know existed. My voice didn't shake. Not once. Because this wasn't pain speaking anymore. This was power. And the most painful part. I said softly. It wasn't strangers who did this. It was someone I trusted. The room went still again. All eyes moved between me and her. My mother shifted in her seat, but she didn't speak. Not yet. You stood in front of people, I said, my eyes locked on hers, and you told them you were praying for my recovery. I took a step closer. But the truth is, there was nothing to recover from. A deep silence filled the space. The kind of silence that forces people to think. To question. To see. My mother finally stood up, her voice tight but controlled. Lorato, she said, this is not the place. No, I cut in, firm but calm. This is exactly the place. Because this is where the lie was made public. A few guests nodded quietly. Others watched, stunned. You created a story, I continued. A toxic family drama that made you look strong, and made me look broken. Her composure started to fall apart. I was trying to help you, she said, her voice rising slightly. I shook my head slowly. Help doesn't destroy someone's reputation. Help doesn't lie for years. Help doesn't turn a daughter into a story people whisper about. The words hit hard. I could see it in the faces around us. The shift. The realization. The truth was landing. And it was louder than any lie. My father, Thabo, who had been silent for so long, finally stood up. His voice was low, heavy. Nomsa, is this true? That question changed everything. Because now, it wasn't just me speaking. It was the beginning of accountability. My mother looked around, her eyes searching for support. But it wasn't there anymore. The same people who once believed her, were now questioning her. That's the power of truth revealed. It doesn't fight. It exposes. And once exposed, it cannot be ignored. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Because there was nothing left to say. The proof was in my hands. Clear. Final. Undeniable. I took a deep breath, and looked around the room one last time. 4 years, my story was taken from me, I said. But tonight, I take it back. No anger. No shouting. Just truth. Strong and steady. I lowered the papers and stepped back. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full. Full of realization. Full of change. Full of a story being rewritten, this time, the right way. I didn't wait for applause. I didn't wait for apologies. I had done what I came to do. I had spoken my truth. And that was enough. As I turned to walk away, I felt lighter. Stronger. Free. Because the lie no longer owned me. The whispers no longer defined me. The story was mine again. And this time, it would be told right. If this story touched you, if you've ever faced betrayal, lies, or felt misunderstood, you are not alone. Comment below and tell me where you are watching from. Like this video, share it with someone who needs strength, and remember, no matter how long a lie lives, the truth will always find its way to the light.